The prompt or set of instructions that we feed to a large language model is very important. That's why in this part we will look into the basics of prompt engineering, what are the good ingredients for a really great prompt, and how to use it in your workflows. Let's get started. So let's talk first about what a prompt is. A prompt is generally a set of instructions that you give to generative AI to produce results. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is then the process in which you use your tools to create specific and effective instructions that generate the desired output responses for a generative AI. And it does that basically by writing good sentences, good prompts, and managing. So when I open up here ChatGPT, this is the general public ChatGPT test interface. You see here the most simple interface that you can imagine. Here is one line of text where you can write something in. And I write something in, for example, tell me about art in the Renaissance. And I get an output. This, what I've typed in here, is a prompt. And we will look into this example in this part of the course a little bit more in detail, but just that you see how there is different effects from how you write a prompt to the output. So, for preparation of this course, I was creating, or was actually prompting Midjourney to create a picture of seminar attendees that are listening to a speaker. I pictured something like, okay, there's someone waving hands at a PowerPoint presentation, talking about the concepts, explaining, and an engaged audience listening to them. What Midjourney here thought, what I wanted to have is a close-up shot of an audience of mixed people from different backgrounds, all with a badge sitting on some sort of a conference. That's not really what I pictured in my mind. But the thing is, I typed in Midjourney a seminar attendees listening to a speaker. And every time I type in this prompt, this generation algorithm creates something that it thinks fits this prompt very well. What you see here is the Midjourney interface, just that you have a feeling for it. Midjourney uses Discord as a way to create applications to the end user, to create images to the end users. In Midjourney, you type your prompt by typing /imagine. And then you write what you want to have created. And you write seminar attendees listening to a speaker in here. What is now happening in the background, it's here with Midjourney, it's a little bit better to see than with ChatGPT, because this ChatGPT is very fast, because it only creates text and not images. What Midjourney, for example, does, it step-by-step creates a picture with a diffusion model. We will look into that later, how that exactly works, but it will step-by-step create images according to my prompt. And you see here, it was the exact prompt that I've shown you on my slide. And again, the picture, or the setting of the picture, is very similar to what I initially got, right? I get here a close-up shot of a bunch of people that are staring somehow into somewhere outside of the frame of the picture. But that's not what I wanted. What I really wanted was to look into a picture, or to create a picture where there is some sort of speaker in the background that talks about AI. And if I imagine that, then I have to think about the components in my picture that I would like to have, put it nicely down in a prompt, so that a generative AI can put all of these concepts and elements in there. And what you see here on the right side, is much closer to what I had initially in my mind when I was saying, okay, create me this picture of seminar attendees listening to me talking about AI. And I'm showing here the text and the generative image route because it makes it so feasible how a small tweak in a prompt can give you a fundamentally different output. And balancing that and mastering that to the right extent is the art, or not the art, but the skill of prompt engineering. Let me show you when you write a prompt without a thought. We are talking about Renaissance, and I'm saying, explain to me what Renaissance is. So when I point, or when I click in OpenAI in the ChatGPT interface, there is a bunch of already predefined metadata and hyperparameters that are already set, like the temperature that we talked about, or the way and of presenting it, the words that are used, the sentence structures that are being used. And when I say ask ChatGPT without specifying anything further, say what Renaissance is, I get as an output a Renaissance, which means rebirth in French, was a cultural, artistic, political and economic movement that began in Italy in the 13th century and lasted until the 17th. It reads a little bit like a Wikipedia article, something like a study book. Like, if that's what you really want, I'm not sure. Like, in my situation, I do not want a Wikipedia article, because then I would just go on Wikipedia and read something from Wikipedia. So that's why you get with a stock prompt without a lot of tweaking, you get something that is bare bones, that is close to the default standard way that ChatGPT is configured to. But you can add certain ingredients to your prompt to make your prompt more compelling. So firstly, the output instruction. That's one of the first of the four ingredients that you can use as a mental model to use any type of prompt and any type of prompting techniques. Later we will go into specific techniques for prompt engineering, but for now, just keep these four dimensions in head. The output instruction basically describes what the AI model should generate. Would you like to generate a summary, write an email, write an essay, explain me something? That's the instruction of what you want to have. To create inputs or to steer the model in the right direction, you can give it input context, and that's data that should be included in the generation, or that should be used as background, as context for the generation. So imagine you would like to create an offer to a customer, and for a certain product that you are selling. And you have as an input a one page of a description what the company of your contact or your customer does. And with that, you give this as in-text context and say, hey, create an offer for product XYZ for me. Take into account the profile of a customer. Here it is. So if you are selling, if your company's sole purpose is to sell pencils, and you have a company that is a healthcare provider, then then this model will take this information about your customer into a context and create something that's more tailored. For example, something like a pitch saying, hey, I know in the healthcare system, especially in Germany, there's not a lot of digital transformation going on, and there's still a lot of pencils, so that's why I give you here the best offer possible for a pencil. Just very stupid example, but just to see what an input context is supposed to be doing. You can also modify, and that's the third dimension, the output representation. And that's basically the how the output is created and what's done. So you could do stuff, for example, saying, okay, the output representation should be easy words. Explain it to a 5-year-old. Write like you are a poet. Write like a big writer. Write it in simple but professional terms. This is not modifying the content, but the representation of that content in your output. And lastly, you can go and do some input examples by giving you a certain structure. For example, if you want to do a Q&A, you say, my format is Q, text, dash, and then blank space, next line, answer, and then so on. Then you can describe patterns of how a certain output should look. So let's take this example. Explain what Renaissance is to me. That's what we have just looked into, but focus on the fine arts aspect of it. For example, how Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael started a new epoch. That's context. That gives you context on what you expect to be in the output in there. Act as a teacher, explain it to people that do not have a specific artistic background, and use simple sentences. Generate maximum 3 paragraphs. This is a definition of the representation of that content in your output. And then you get something more focused. For example, you see here the Renaissance was a special time in history when people in Europe became very interested in art, science, and learning. Well, that's not complex sentences. This is explaining it like you would explain it to someone in a school. It is a rebirth, but the elements that we have in our context you can find here. During the Renaissance, artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael did amazing things that started a new epoch in the world of art. That's the output representation. And if you count here, we have 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, also part of the output representation. And with that, we can really focus on these 4 dimensions with different prompt patterns, different prompting techniques that we learn later, that always modify one of these or several of these 4 dimensions, regardless where you are. So, in summary, prompt engineering is a skill, it's not an art. It's an engineering method on how you can apply certain tools to modify the output of what you want. There's 4 main parts of a well-crafted prompt: the output instruction, the input context, the output representation, and the input examples. And prompt engineering exists really in any type of generative AI that uses text as its input method. So ChatGPT, generative text, but also generative images. There are a lot where you can type, like in Midjourney, these type of things. Later, we will look deeper into specific prompt engineering techniques. But for now, keep this general framework, these 4 dimensions, and the mindset behind prompt engineering in your mind.